Welcome to the clinic number 3. It's hard to believe we are already at clinic number 3 out of 6. Today's about the run. If you're first time to one of our clinics, I'm Gillian Faley. I'm one of the coaches of the First Timers program. And so excited to be a part of this journey. I think there are going to be close to 400, if not more, first timers this year, which is incredible and so exciting. So I hope everybody's getting very excited and knee deep into training. So I will be honest that the run clinic is traditionally our shortest clinic, because there's really not too much to talk about when it comes to the run, which is very different than our next clinic, which is the transition clinic, which often is our most popular and probably the most informative clinic that we have. So you'll definitely not want to miss that on July 7th, or of course, just watch the video. So I'm going to go through the run, and also feel free to ask any questions today about anything. I know now you've probably started training, you've probably started reading a lot of things. So we don't need to confine the questions to the run. Again, there's not too much to say about it. So any questions you have about the triathlon in general, feel free to put them in the chat, and I will make sure to get to them when we are through the run clinic. So let's kick it off. Well, let's see. All right. So by now, pretty sure everybody knows that the order that the disciplines go are the swim, the bike, and then the run. So we are now at the last, the run. As far as distances, if you're doing the international distance, you're going to be doing a 10K, or about a little over 6 miles. If you're doing the sprint distance, you're going to be doing a 5K, or the 3.1 miles. So I have a little video here.
Trans-America Chicago Triathlon, the run course. The run course in Chicago is truly one of a kind, spanning vast stretches of Chicago's magnificent lakefront through its world-famous parks with breathtaking views around every corner. Beautiful and exciting from the very start.
The run's awesome. You head out of transition, you're running south, hundreds of spectators. It's right near the swim course. You've got all the spectators from the swim course are spectating the run as well.
It feels great because it's so beautiful, and it's not one of those like concrete, very boring path runs. It's so gorgeous. You literally forget that you're in a race.
The 5K sprint distance competitors will cross Walden Drive, then turn around and head back north. Olympic distance racers cover 10K, heading further south past McCormick Place before making their turnaround. Spectacular views throughout the race, passing iconic Chicago landmarks one after another.
You come down through the museum campus area, you're going through Grant Park, past Buckingham Fountain, all these landmarks. You go around the Shed Aquarium, Soldier Field, if you're doing the Olympic distance, past McCormick Place, all these, staples to Chicago. But the best part is actually when you're finishing. When you're coming back, you come around the Shed Aquarium and the skyline just opens up to you. And there's something about that just, gives you little chills, and you look up and you're like, wow, this is truly, truly a unique race.
At that point, everyone is heading westward, then under Lakeshore Drive before making one final turn at Columbus Drive for one of the most exciting finishes in all of amateur sport.
That's where the adrenaline kicks in, and if you thought you didn't have anything, you all of a sudden found something that you didn't think you had to get to the finish.
When I spin around that corner and on that final stretch, I'm like in a full sprint. It's amazing.
Come on, Louis! When you get up to the finish line, you're coming down that chute, he's yelling your name.
Great race, great job, great finish.
And everybody screams for you.
Nice job! Woo!
The race is over, but the party has just begun. Live music, cold drinks, so much food, and an incredible feeling of accomplishment and camaraderie shared by all.
Oh, it's awesome. It's great energy. Everyone's got all their endorphins released. It's awesome to be around all these motivated people.
You can relax. Finally, it's over. It's done. Let's do it again.
All right, so that was just an overview of the run course. So you can actually see it if you've not ever spectated the Chicago Triathlon before. Also, just as a side note, I would highly recommend poking around on the Chicago Triathlon website. They have a bunch of great videos. Today, I just saw a new one about the rules of the triathlon. So it's a great poke around on the site and you'll find a lot of information. So as the video stated, the run goes south from transition. And if we remember, transition is up on the north end of Monroe Harbor by where the yacht club is in a big grassy area right before the river. And so that's where you're gonna come in on the north side of transition off the bike. And then you're going to the run out will be on the south end of the transition. Now, the morning of, you'll be able to see there's going to be big giant arches that say bike out, bike in, run out. And so you'll know exactly where to go. But that's a good thing to remember. And again, we'll talk about this next time when we talk more about the transition. Is the morning of, as you're setting up your bike in your transition area, is kind of getting a lay of the land, making sure you know where the different entrances and exits are. It's a good thing to do the morning of, or as we will also talk about more, the day before, when you can rack your bike early. We also usually do a transition walkthrough where we talk about all of these different things, and that's always a really popular thing event. So you're gonna run out the south side of transition and you're gonna go south on the lakefront path. Good thing this is part of the course that you can actually practice ahead of time if you want, unlike the swim and the bike. But the run, it's right on the lakefront path, with the sprint turning around just south of Soldier Field. As the video said, the international distance goes down past McCormick Place and there's a turnaround, and both of them finish at the same place up Columbus Drive. So that's the course, pretty straightforward. So moving on to gear. Again, luckily the run is one of the more straightforward. You don't need a lot. Actually, we put together this triathlon basics of, the 3 key items from each discipline, and the run, we kind of struggled with coming up with 3, but as you can see here, running shoes, sunglasses, or a hat, depending on, what the weather is like for the day, and then a race belt. So a race belt, again, we talked about this during the swim clinic, but it's something that's only is only really that you see in triathlons the most. Now, here's a question: can you see me right now, or do you only see the screen? Because I can't tell.
I can see you in the screen.
Okay, perfect. Because I can't see the little box that I'm usually in is not there, and so that's perfect. Thank you. So race belts, as we've talked about. So unlike doing a 5K where you either pin the number to your shirt or whatever it is ahead of time and wear it the whole time, in a triathlon, again, you don't need to have the number on your shirt and on the front the whole time. The swim, your number it's going to be on your arms, and then it's also they're going to know what wave you're in based on your cap and the color of your swim cap. On the bike, then there's going to be numbers on your helmet, and there's going to be numbers on your bike. The run is the only part of the triathlon where you do need a number on the front, much like any run race that you do. The race belt comes about because, again, remember, you've swam and you've biked. The last thing you want to do is sit in transition and try to use the little tiny pins and get that number on your shirt before you go out on the run. So transition belts, as the picture shows, you put your number through the little toggles, and then you can just, and we'll talk about this in transition. I always put it in my shoe because you're going to put your shoes on, and that's if you're wearing bike shoes and switch to running shoes. And then you just pick this up, clip it on before you go on the run, and out you go. As you can see from the picture, a lot of the belts also have different little elastic things where you can put different kind of nutrition and stuff. So they can serve a couple of different purposes. The one thing about a race belt, I always definitely practice in it. It might take a little bit of time to figure out where it sits right. The worst thing is for it to keep riding up and you're not used to that. So it's a good thing to practice with. But again, just something about, triathlons, a really simple, pretty cost-effective way to make everything easier. As I think I said in the first clinic, there's always a mad rush on race belts at the expo, because they'll talk about it in the course talk, and then after the course talk, everybody goes to find a race belt. So get yours ahead of time, and you'll be, you want to be part of the mad rush for race belts. Again, kind of trying to, think other little things that you might want. Body Glide. So this is an anti-chafing thing that you can, put on, wherever you might chafe. So triathlon, unfortunately, something that comes with triathlons is chafing, mainly because, one, you're biking, you're also swimming, you have, sometimes a wetsuit on top of triathlon clothing. So really though, during training, you're going to figure out if there's something that's uncomfortable, whether it's where your shirt rubs your neck or Body Glide is also if you have started swimming in a wetsuit, where the back of the wetsuit closes is Velcro. And if you miss that Velcro, the way that, if it's a little bit off, every triathlete has had a time where they swam and ended up with some pretty bad chafing on the back of their neck due to the rubbing of the wetsuit. So this is always a good thing just to put on your back of your neck, just in case. And it will help avoid one of those fun experiences of a really chafed back of the neck in a wetsuit. So yeah, that's Body Glide. Shoes. And I've gotten a couple of questions on shoes and what are the best shoes. And really my advice on shoes would be, this is one of those things where you probably want to go to an actual store, whether it's your local running store, a place where shoes is what they do, and they will fit you for shoes. So if you've never been to a true running store, you'll go in and somebody will help you, and somebody will look at the way you walk, look at the way you run, and it's all about the way your foot hits the ground and does, is it ankle first? Do you midfoot strike? Whatever it is. And then based on the way that you run, they can fit you with a shoe that will properly work with your gait. So it's not something that I can necessarily recommend as far as what shoe is the best. But what I would say the best idea is to go to a running store and have them fit you. And so what you'll want to do is make sure that somebody spends some time with you. They will watch you walk, they will watch you run, and be able to recommend what might be a good shoe for you to try. There are things for every thing. That makes sense. But so they do make triathlon shoes. You know, do I think triathlon shoes are necessary for triathlons? Absolutely not. You know, there is a purpose for them, but it's also a good way to sell more things. So biggest takeaway from shoes is go to a running store and get fit for shoes. And this is so important because it's the best way to avoid any kind of injury when you're running or walking. So that is shoes. Now, one of the things I talked about briefly when I was talking about the race belt was, you know, on the bike, if you are not going to wear bike shoes and clip in, you can wear the same shoes to ride the bike as you run. So you won't need to change your shoes at all. You know, if you choose to wear bike shoes, you will need to, once you get off the bike, you will change your shoes into your run shoes and take off. Again, this will be a big thing we talk about when we talk about transitions on July 7th. Nutrition and hydration. So I want to reiterate something that we talked about in the bike clinic, which is the best way to have good nutrition and hydration is to never get in a deficit. So you're going to have already had a pretty long day before you even get to the before you even get to the run. So making sure the morning of you are hydrating before the race, you know, you figured out what you want to do as far as nutrition before the race. Again, we'll continue to talk about that in transition about, you know, things to think about before the race, and given the length of time sometimes between transition, once you put your stuff in transition to the start of the race. But I think that's the key takeaway is you never want to get in a deficit. Once you're dehydrated, it's really going to be hard to make that run enjoyable and get rehydrated. And same thing with nutrition. You're at least going to be out there a couple of hours. You're going to need some form of calories and energy in order to ensure that you have the energy to you know, to get to the end of the race and to try to get to the end of the race having some fun. So making sure you, and we talked about last time, there are like chews, there are goos, there's all kinds of things that are made for endurance sports to give you that energy. But on the run specifically, there is Chicago Triathlon uses Gatorade Endurance. Again, with nutrition is everybody's stomachs are different. So figuring out your nutrition is something you want to do over these next 10 or so weeks before the race. It's not something that you know, want to go into the store the night before or at the expo and buy the maple bacon goo and try that the morning of. And that is a thing. And some people actually like it, but so you want to try ahead of time. On course, there's going to be Gatorade Endurance and water. So if you intend to drink the Gatorade Endurance and stuff, it's something, you know, you might want to try ahead of time. You know, and it's a very popular thing that you can, you know, find online or at, you know, at running stores and such. But I believe it's the lemon lime version of Gatorade Endurance, but they'll also have water on the course. So that's, and, you know, and some people choose, one thing to think about is some people choose to carry their own water or endurance drink, sports drink on them, you know, in a bottle or something. So figuring out what you want to do as far as hydration. And again, if you're going to carry your own bottles, definitely making that something you practice ahead of time and just make sure you're comfortable with the belt. But the course is well, or the run course at least, is well stocked with hydration. So really, as far as gear, I mean, that's, you know, that's kind of the extent. You don't need much for the run. You know, you need a pair of shoes. You want to make sure, you know, if you're wearing socks, that you have a pair of socks that you're comfortable with, you know, though sock person at the expo may seem very interesting. If you've never run in those socks, don't wear them for the first time on race day. We talked about the race belts, hat, sunglasses. We've talked previously about the triathlon clothing. And at this point, I assume some people have started to look into that. So if there are any questions about what you're finding out there, feel free to ask those as well. But moving on to training. So we posted a very, very simple but tried and true, training plan on the Facebook page about a week ago. So if you want to go, so if you didn't see that, it's on the Facebook page. I'll repost it again so it's back to the top, or I'm sure there's some way to pin it, whatever, I'll figure it out. But really in triathlons, there are three main, and most running, there are three main types of runs that you're going to do in the training plan. The first being your long run. So this is building up the endurance to do the distance that you're going to be racing for that day. So long runs are meant to be, aerobic versus anaerobic. And so they're going to be at a slower pace than what you'll see at what's next, your tempo runs, but usually for a longer distance. And you're going to keep increasing the time or the distance that you run week after week to get to the endurance to run your race distance. Then you're going to see tempo runs. So tempo runs are more about speed. And so these are going to be your runs. This would be like a track workout. Or, oftentimes I'll go out to the lakefront and do my own version of what they're called fartlek runs. And sometimes I will do them unstructured of, I'm going to run to that light post and then I'm going to walk to the trash can. And that run portion is going to be at a high anaerobic intensity. So that's going to be where you're really pushing yourself, your heart rate goes up, your breathing goes up, and you're working on increasing your speed, which over time is going to increase your speed in your long runs. So if you always run your long runs, if the only thing you ever do is a long run at a 12-minute mile, it's going to be really hard to get that long run down, to whatever your goal is, an 11 minute and 30-second mile, unless you incorporate some tempo runs that are at a faster pace than a 12-minute mile. So that's why now you don't want to do tempo. You're not going to see a training plan that has all tempo runs, because in the long, that will end up actually taking away from your endurance of the long runs. So that's just a very quick overview, but basically want a mixture, of what you'll see usually in the training plan that we have is, a long run, which is going to be a longer time, and then you might have, then you'd have one tempo run, which would alternate some intervals. And then you have what's called your bricks, which we've talked about this again, I believe during the bike clinic, but bricks are very specific to triathlons. And so this is when it's practicing that transition from the bike to the run. And the only way to make that transition easier, feel better, smoother, is to practice going from a longer bike ride to a run. And so you'll see that, and it starts becoming incorporated into the training plan, where might do, and I'm just throwing out, 45-minute bike ride. And you'll have to plan this out. So there's a place for you to park your bike, and then you take off on a 10-minute run. And it's really it's not about building the endurance of the run necessarily. It's more about getting your legs used to switching the muscles and going from biking to running. So that's the bricks. So those are really the three types of runs you'll be doing as you start to train. And whatever your future endeavors for triathlons are. Let's see. So I know, as I caveated before we started, this is definitely the shortest clinic because there's not a lot to talk about. The run is pretty straightforward. But so at this time, I'd love to open it up to any questions. As I stated before, the next clinic, just to have it on your calendars, is the transition clinic, which is going to be July 7th at the same time. So are there any questions at this time about the run, about the race in general? Oh, we got some questions. Okay, I can see them now. Okay. Let's see. Okay, we got about the recording. So I will repost those on the Facebook page. But again, if you also email me, Gillian, Gillian so it's GILLIAN @livegrit.com. I can email them to you if you do not have Facebook, but I will repost the bike and the swim onto the Facebook page. Okay, and there was another question about wetsuit rentals. So what I know about wetsuit rentals, so at the open water swim clinics, I do know Urban Tri Gear is renting them there. They're down there during the clinics. I do know, if you, just from past experience, if you are wanting to rent a wetsuit for the triathlon, I would highly recommend calling whoever you're going to rent so like Urban Tri Gear, I know for a fact rents them. You would want to call them now and see if they're taking reservations. A lot of times they may open up on a certain day, but race day wetsuit rentals go very fast. The other place that I'm not sure, but would be worth looking into it's a place called MOX, so MOX, Multisport. Historically, they have rented suits. Again, you want to start planning that ahead of time, though, if you're planning on renting for the day of. Great question. Is there endurance gel with caffeine? There absolutely is. And that's a great question because some people don't realize that they're buying the endurance gels. So endurance gels, if you don't know what they are, there's a number of there are a lot of different companies that will make them. They're a gel that will come in a little packet. There are vegan versions of it. There are all different kinds. There's organic versions. There's GU is a very popular one. And a lot of them will come with caffeine. They will clearly say it on it. Why somebody might want caffeine is if you're one who uses caffeine, it does give you a little bit of jolt of energy, but they definitely make it. But also a lot of people who don't know that end up buying it by mistake and didn't want it. So just check in the packet and it will say if it has caffeine or not. And it will also say on there how many milligrams of caffeine it has. So are there any other questions at this time about the run or about in general the triathlon? Okay, I don't see any other. Yeah, I mean, again, it's pretty straightforward, the run, but yeah, I'm very excited for next time's clinic. It's by far my favorite because I enjoy transitions in clinics, and it's what makes triathlons. And so I hope everybody can join April 7th. I know that we're still trying to coordinate maybe some casual meetups down by the lake. So stay tuned to the Facebook page as we get closer and into July. Also hope to see everybody out at the next swim clinic. But if that is all for today, then we will see everybody back on July 7th. Happy training, and we'll see everybody soon.